straight into the questions. If you wouldn't mind just telling us your first name.
My name's Erica.
Awesome. Can you just tell us a little bit about your childhood?
Yeah, so I was born in Milwaukee, Wisconsin, and for the first 5 years of my life, I lived in Ohio. Okay. And then we moved to Florida, and after that, we moved to New York. So I spent most of my childhood living in New York. I am adopted, so my family.
So the hair can be. There you go.
Okay. So my parents raised me with my brother. My birth family is from Wisconsin, and later on in my life, I had the opportunity to meet them and connect with them. But for the first, I don't know, 13 years of my life, I didn't know them and didn't know much about them.
What were your dreams as a child?
To enjoy life, to have fun, to connect, to support others, to help others. I was a really outgoing child with a lot of friends and loved moving my body. So a lot of the activities I was involved in were sports, essentially. And that kind of led into creativity through art, and really any way of expressing myself that felt authentic, right? Through words, through writing, through dance. That was a huge modality of mine that I really enjoyed to show myself, my inner self, my inner world, a way to express it authentically.
Awesome. Would you mind telling us more about your relationship with your dad? And I know you have your adopted parents and your biological dad. So maybe if you could talk about both of those, with the relationship with your adopted dad and then the lack of a relationship or whatever that scenario consists of with your biological father.
Yeah, for sure. So my birth parents were 15 when they had me, so they were young, and just their choice was, we weren't in a position to really raise a daughter right then and there. And I'm so blessed that my parents who did adopt me, it really was fate, really a synchronistic event, I would say, for how everybody came together. And my father and I are incredibly close. He worked a lot when I was younger, so he did travel quite a bit, and the moments that we were able to share together were just really remarkable. He is somebody for me that really resembles unconditional love and stability and authenticity and resiliency, I would say. And we've certainly, I think we're very, very similar. So we've had our fair share of conflict in my life, and what that's looked like was, developing ways of communication that we were able to really listen to one another and hear one another. And now I can say he's a great mentor of mine as well as a friend. And in terms of my birth father, he is somebody that, I didn't have much of a relationship with him throughout my life. This was a more recent development and evolution for us, and that really began, I think it was like 2006. I was in middle school, and I've always been, I would say, stubborn and also very passionate. And I was like, you know what? I want to know who these people are. I want to know where I come from. And I created a fake Facebook account and I searched for my birth mom first, and I knew her name, I knew where she had lived, and I reached out to like 6 women with her information because their photos weren't really, I don't know, they either did not have photos or they were like pieces of art or something. So I didn't know who she was. And she got back to me a few months later saying, wow, like I can't believe it's you. I've waited my whole life for this moment. And through her is when I reconnected with my birth father. And that was a relationship that I think, took its own course for a variety of reasons. And he was in his own journey that, there were moments where we really were able to connect in a similar space. And there were moments where I was called, like, let's pause right now. And I had the great opportunity to meet him for the first time in 2019 it was. And it was just a remarkable encounter for both of us. I think that, him too. His authenticity and the peace that he just emanates is so profound, and we just clicked instantly, really. And I felt really seen and heard by him, and yeah, he's a remarkable human.
How did that emotion feel, being seen and heard by? Describe that feeling.
I felt so wholesome, and just tremendously grateful. I think for him particularly, because he was like a mysterious person in my life. I've heard stories about him, and I was in communication with family members of his and just getting bits and pieces, but I didn't really knew who he was at his core. I never got to experience his heart, his true essence, and being in front of him just blew me away. I'm like, wow, this human is just so innocent. That's the word. It was innocence, and I was just deeply, deeply humbled by being in his presence.
It's beautiful. So what about your relationship with your mom, and the same dynamic with your birth mom and your
Yeah, that's a really good question. So I think with many mother-daughter relationships, there's just, we're gonna butt heads, right? Mom knows what's right, all those things. And my mom and I as well have developed, she's my best friend essentially, and it hasn't always been that case. I think she's always wanted the best for me and had her idea of what that was, and guided me to spaces that resembled what she thought, would be best. And I'm definitely like, nope, I'm going to create my own paths. I'm going to do what I want. I'm going to follow my heart. And it looks totally different. It is not a linear path by any means. And I think that, we've journeyed in this way that has been full of conflict, and really trying to develop an understanding for one another, and that we operate in very different ways, yet I think we have the same motivation behind our actions, and so she has been my greatest advocate. She has been there throughout my entire life at every moment, supporting me. Something she'll often say is, I might not agree with you, and I will always love and support you, no matter what action you take. And that's just been tremendous for me in every point of my own evolution and development. And I think as well with my birth mom, I have always, I remember when I was younger, I had this void. I experienced this void within myself, and I always thought, well, if I met my birth mom, maybe that would fill that void. Maybe that would give me some clarity in terms of what I was seeking. And when I reached out to her, that really started this whole other journey that I did not anticipate beforehand, really like a coming home to myself, like a remembrance of who I am through her. And my mom certainly felt very threatened by that, understandably so, and she did her best to support me and, keep that communication open. But ultimately, it came down to like, Erica, this is your journey, and like take that, really take it and do what you need with it. And my birth mom has also just been an incredible source of inspiration. She's lived quite the life herself, and I think, the love that we share together is really, really beautiful. And I've also had the great opportunity for her to actually come to my hometown and meet my family. And that, I'll never forget this moment. We were in this cafe late at night, after dinner that we shared together. And it was probably the most awkward night of my life, just with everybody in the room together and things being sorted out, and seeing the people that I loved most sitting at one table together. I'll never forget that moment, that people are able to come together in the name of love and connection.
So the next question is, and this can be, you can answer it as big as you want. What did you learn from all of your parents together?
That, so many things. One, that I belong. I think that was the biggest thing, that I belong here, that I really belong in this life, how I want to live it. It's mine to create and to experience fully. And that at the end of the day, it all comes down to love.
Could you tell us about your first love it's whatever you associate as your first love. It can be a person, it can be a hobby, it can be anything, and how that felt.
My first love, so many things. So the feeling that I get right now thinking of that is like just this opening in my chest, this opening and this welcoming and receiving of lightness and freedom. And I think in the most recent years, the most transformative love affair that I've had really has been a homecoming to myself. And I was at a place called Yoga Farm in Lansing, New York, with some dear teachers of mine. And one of my teachers said, the greatest love affair you'll have is with yourself. And at that time, I had not experienced a very harmonious, relationship with myself. And I was like, no way, absolutely not. You're kidding. Like, I don't know what drugs you're doing, but there is no way that that's possible. And, years later, here I am, and like, wow, I really love myself. And it is an ever, I think, a lifelong practice and journey of, coming back and showing up for myself and supporting myself, and what that's afforded me in my life of really like exploring, well, what is love for me? What does unconditional love for myself looks like? And that's living a life that is, filled with more harmony with relationships with others, and more peace in my connections to everything around me. And this process also of surrendering and trusting that like everything is working out, everything is okay. This is, again, belonging. Like, this is where I belong, and there's nothing wrong with me, like all is well. I am whole, and I'm free in this moment. So it's opened up a whole new perspective of life that I think was lacking before. So to have my own support in every space that I step into is just such a powerful and freeing experience.
What about your first loss or heartbreak and how that felt?
My first loss or heartbreak. There's been a lot of loss in my life, I would say, and my first okay. So a heartbreak that I'll share is I was a senior in college living with, I think, 10 girls it was. And there was somebody in our house that wanted to bring in a bunny rabbit for us to live with. And I was like, all right, do your thing. Like, house is big enough, if that's what you want. And little did I know I would be the one that would be taking care of this bunny. Her name was Lola. And this also turned into a beautiful love affair, a beautiful companionship, unlike anything I've ever experienced before. Talk about loving myself unconditionally, yet here's another being that really depended on me showing up for her and caring for her and tending to her and really getting to know her. And I don't think I've ever experienced love in that way with another being before in my life. It was totally random. I think it was a sign from the universe of like, here you go, Erica, here's an experience of love that really you have to surrender to and you have to be authentic with. And the heartbreak that came from that was her passing. It was very unexpected, and I blamed myself for it, right? Like, as a primary caretaker for another living being. Losing something like that was just so devastating and so tremendous. And what that taught me is, the impermanence of life, the impermanence of this life and the malleability of relationship and connection. And with that, the everlasting meaning that holds, and like that lives on, even if something completes, whether it's a relationship or a friendship or a passing of something, like that meaning and that space that was cultivated is very much real, and we get to bring that on, for eternity, essentially. So yeah, it was really, really sweet gift from the universe.
What's love to you now versus what it was to you when you were a kid. So how do those, if that love has changed or grown,
Yeah,
how do those two different loves feel, and what are the,
so different.
yeah.
Growing up, I thought love meant following the rules, fitting in, doing what I was told, right? I thought it was this earning. I thought I had to earn love. You know, my parents, reflecting back now, you know, it was unconditional for them. Yet as a child, I thought I had to prove myself. I thought I had to prove that I like deserved to be here, and that I would only receive love if I fit into what was being asked of me, essentially. And once that, and also that it was outside of myself. I didn't think that love lived within me. I thought I had to get it from others. I thought I had to, yeah, again, prove myself in a variety of ways. And it wasn't until I was introduced, like, it's within you. Like, love lives within you. And I've had experiences, of course, as a child loving myself. I hadn't yet made that direct connection. And what that looks like now is, nourishing myself deeply in a variety of ways, taking care of myself, listening to, that inner wisdom, that inner voice, my intuition, and really honoring that to the best of my ability, and knowing that, it's not outside of me. Yes, I can absolutely experience love with other people. I can experience union and freedom with others in the presence of others. And for that to happen, I must be, tending and honoring myself, essentially.
Can you tell us just about a general good day for you? What's a good day look like for you?
So one of my favorite things is connecting with so-called strangers. I love just talking to people and just having like these little brief moments of such like deep presence, like where we're sharing this bubble together, whether it's at the grocery store or on the street, and again, offering people to share their story and to hold a space for them to do so. That lights me up. So if I'm traveling or even, just moving to Denver, like I will strike up a conversation with anybody, anywhere, and it brings me joy because, like connection knows no boundaries. We can connect with people so authentically in any space, even if it's just for a moment. That just offers me a glimpse of like the kindness of humanity and, again, love. Like it's really that.
What about a bad day?
A bad day. I am certainly one to be in my mind. So if I'm stuck in like an existential thought process, or I'm not doing enough, or there's suffering in the world and I'm contributing to that, I have to be doing more, like that, I can really get wrapped up in those thoughts. So a bad day for me is yeah, just like getting sucked into that space and feeling powerless, and like, what's the purpose of all this? And if there's suffering, like why do I deserve to have these days where, I'm feeling so aligned or so confident, or, I have all these things. So yeah, kind of getting wrapped in that really existential thought process, I would say.
How do you get out of it?
It depends on the day. Sometimes it has to take its course, and I just have to be in that space, and really feel it, and like, okay, this is a part of life. This is a part of being human, having this experience of duality, between the light and the dark, the struggle and the triumph, the suffering and the liberation. And other days it's looking like, like getting out into the world, and just talking to people, or, meditating, or being with friends, and bringing myself out of those spaces intentionally. Often it's just surrendering and letting it take its course.
What's a person or an event that's shaped you, good or bad? How does it feel when you reflect on that?
So many people have impacted me in a variety of ways in my life, and I think a really pivotal time period for me was I had an opportunity to go to India in 2016, and that experience was twofold. I think prior to that, I was living a life of just feeling really anxious, just anxiety ridden, essentially, internally. And externally, externally, it might not have been so obvious. Internally, it was this constant battle of like, all right, Erica, just like show up. You've got this, just figure it out. In India, to me, I've always had this deep calling to go, and I knew it was like the most terrifying place in my mind. It was like loud and busy and just a whole new world, essentially, yet I knew I had to go. So I had an opportunity in college to go, and I remember before I sent in, I had to apply to it. It was an internship. Before I applied, I said, Erica, this either can be a month-long trip of like panic attacks and Xanax, or the most amazing, eye-opening experience you've ever had in your life. And I believe declarations really work, because I declared, this is going to be the most incredible experience of my life, and it was. And it opened up for me the beauty that exists in this world. And my experience of, meeting people over there was like they had life figured out, like something just like they knew something that like here we lack so much in our society. And I believe it really is this alignment with like gratitude, really living and operating from the space of gratitude, through through trusting that we're provided for, whether it's we have material things or not, whether we're ill or not, like we are so provided for in a variety of ways. And there's so much to be grateful for in every moment. So I really struggled coming back. It was very hard to come back to like college and things and, the busyness of the world, where so much, we're like moving at the speed of light and missing all of the nuances of the days that are just, they can be such gems and fill us, like really like bring us into spaces of wholeness and peace and unity with the world. And that was like my whole time over there. It was chaotic for sure, and the beauty really stood out to me.
Awesome. What's inspired you?
What has inspired me? What's inspired me is A, the resiliency of people, and B, I have this faith inside of me. I have this like experience that is just so powerful, and why I wake up every morning of like, it's worth it. I don't know why it's worth it, but something is worth it, whether it's conversations like these, whether it's like feeling the sun on my face, whether it's like being in nature or learning about something or working through conflict. Like just life inspires me, people inspire me, and that we get to feel and touch and smell and see and just really experience life in so many different ways, and also right, the experience of like this internal world, and like the mysteries of life that really gets me motivated to like keep exploring, and discovering.
What have you found out exploring mysteries?
That I know nothing. I know nothing. It is all an experience, and I'm constantly humbled by the not knowing, and just giving into that, surrendering to that, like, okay, I don't know.
What's been the most humbling experience for you? How did that experience feel?
The most humbling experience for me, the most recent humbling experience that has been pivotal for me was in 2020. I found out I was pregnant, and I think a lot of my life I've tried to have things figured out and sorted out and have control, and this was a moment that I felt totally out of control with. And what that opened up for me, a variety of things, and why I say it's humbling, is A, again, that space of not knowing, like not having the answer, not knowing what's right, what's wrong. And two, being that realizing like so much conflict exists in the world of morality. And in this experience, particularly morality, I didn't see like, I didn't know how morality could fit into choice in this matter. And humbling to really experience the power of being a woman. I think that was the first time I really experienced how powerful women were, and being a woman and what that really meant, you know, being able to cultivate life and to choose to bring that into the world, or to not, or to try and, you know, see how that goes. But yeah, being pregnant, I would say, was the most humbling experience I've ever had.
So the next question, go in your mind and think. This life event can be mental, physical, or spiritual. Tell me about a time in your life that you can relate to the word war.
War. I would say for a lot of my life, I lived in an internal battle zone, you know, an internal violent space that was filled with tremendous conflict and misunderstanding and lies and deceit. And an internal war zone, you know, like not knowing who I am and making myself wrong for not knowing, and constantly questioning myself and my belonging here. And it was just a very violent, unhappy place to be, I would say. And for no good, like, for what, you know, for what reason? Like, why did I resort to such conflict and violence internally, just to like get nowhere with that, you know?
How did that conflict and violence look like?
Judgment, internal judgment, which then translated to judging others and putting up barriers for myself and wanting to connect, yet not feeling worthy of connection and not feeling trusting enough to connect with people, you know, authentically. It looked like making myself wrong for every choice that I ever made and just bashing myself, you know, like in just such nasty ways. And it what it really did was like I was in the world, but I wasn't of the world, or rather I was of the world, but I wasn't really in it. You know, I was like, there was always a barrier in front of me, because I was full of strife internally.
How'd you get over that? Or how do you get over that?
Yeah, I think it's a constant practice, you know, so like just physical practices like exercise and meditation and journaling and gratitude and like shifting my perspective to that, you know. I really think it's a perspective thing. And additionally, like questioning, like why would that be my MO? Like, why would I go to that? What does this serve me right now? You know, what does this conflict afford me? You know, because it's providing something, you know. And what I discovered is that it provided this illusion of a barrier of safety. You know, I was afraid of being vulnerable. I was afraid of getting hurt. I was afraid of ultimately being abandoned, you know, like being abandoned as a newborn. I didn't want that to happen again. So I thought, all right, well, there must be something wrong with me for my birth mom really essentially to give me up. So I didn't know what that was. So I had to keep myself contained. I had to really like censor myself. And it's just been a process of really choosing to recognize all that I am as a human, to heal that story and create a new narrative that is more empowering and ultimately that is more truthful for me, and creating paths for myself from that space, as opposed to I'm not worthy, I don't belong, I'm unlovable.
What is the most truthful part of you? What would you I know that's a deep question. How would you answer that?
My love for people, my love for humanity. I really believe in the goodness of people, and I believe that healing and love is possible because I've been through it and I'm still through it, and I never ever ever thought I could really accept and love myself as I am. And I know that if it's possible for me, then others too can really step on that path and at least try.
How does it feel loving yourself and accepting yourself? And can you describe that feeling? Or when you started turning that leaf, like, there.
Yeah, freedom.
Yeah.
Freedom, like showing up in a space. And sometimes, yes, like there is a guard up, of course, naturally, and choosing, it's okay, just be here, be yourself, and getting to experience such authentic connection with other people, and to experience emotion so freely, and to like feel inspired, really feel inspired by other people and myself. Like I'm constantly like, wow, Erica, like where did that come from? Or wow, and having that, like that experience of wonderment. Yeah, freedom, definitely the experience of freedom.
So the next question, same type of question. Go in your mind and think. This life event can be mental, physical, or spiritual. Tell me about a time in your life that you can relate to the word peace.
Every time that I choose to surrender, I experience a sense of deep peace. And it's so interesting. I forgot about this. When I was going through a really challenging time, I think, when I was going to India. Prior to that, I was going through a breakup and just really hating on myself. And part of me was like, well, I could end my life in India. It's far away from here. My parents won't have to really experience it like firsthand. And it's like in a separate world, and that was part of my choice for wanting to go there. And I didn't really have like a how to, I just knew, all right, if I were to choose to leave this lifetime right now, it would be over there. And the universe has a really funny way of working out. There was this hike that we were going to go on that was actually called Suicide Rock. And I was like, all right, let's see what this is about, and I wouldn't say I was actively thinking of ending my life during this time, during the trip rather, like prior, yes. And I wasn't like, all right, is this my chance? I just knew like that's kind of what was in my realm at that point, my relationship with myself. And we get to this rock, and this spot was like just so massive and terrifying and beautiful, and really like it was like this bubble of life, of like the beauty and the terror that exists, that we experience every day. And here I was, an opportunity, like here is a place that you could just choose right now to like leave this life as you know it. And I walked out to like the edge of the rock, and people were taking photos and everything, and I took in the magnitude of this space, the magnitude and like the beauty, and again the terror of like this could be it. We always have the choice to like to be here or not to be here. And I had this like, I just had this flashback, and I don't know what it was, but I had this like download, and it was more of like a physical experience that I had of freedom to choose to stay or freedom to go, to like take that step. And immediately I had this like, again, another download of the experience that I had. This was like our third week into the trip, and we had one more week left. And never had I felt more alive than I did being there. And I said, you know what, Erica? In 3 short weeks, you've experienced the most beauty that you've ever witnessed, the most authenticity and terror and like just aliveness, truly. And if that's possible in just 3 weeks in India, then surely you can experience this more. And really what it was, I experienced myself for the first time. And I was like, all right, you know what? I'm willing to give it another go. I'm willing to see what that journey might be like, you know, that journey of me being in the world authentically. And that was a very pivotal moment for me.
How did experiencing yourself feel?
You know, I think I really got why I was so afraid to be myself. You know, when we experience ourselves fully, it's like, oh my gosh, how can that much power and how can that much expansiveness exist in a body like this? You know, however you want to word it. So I was blown away. I was floored. I couldn't believe it. So again, it's like, it's believing that like I deserve to feel that way. I deserve to feel so powerful that I don't know what to do with it. I don't know how to be in that space yet. You know, there are ways to alchemize that into action. There are ways to alchemize that into peace and to embody that power, I think. So it was just, yeah, I was blown. There are no words.
Could you tell us about a truly difficult time in your life, how it felt, and how you endured it?
Yeah, so I'll go back. Oh, sorry. I'll go back to the pregnancy. You know, as beautiful as an experience it was, particularly in hindsight, in the moment, it was the most challenging experience of my life. I was a yes to taking on motherhood, to exploring that path. And a lot of the people around me were a hard no of that, you know, like, you can't do this, you don't have the resources, we don't want this. And, you know, when your soul really calls for you to do something, it's like you can't ignore that, right? Like, it is an experience that is so clear that you just do it. Because, like, why wouldn't you? You know, that's like the best next step to take. And here I was knowing, my soul was like, yeah, like, all will work out. We don't know how, but it will work out. And just go down that path, you know, choose yes, have this child, yet being surrounded by no, was a very, very challenging thing for me. And what I realized was, since I can remember, since I ever learned about the word abortion and like what that meant, I said, you know what, I was born into this world because my mom chose not to have an abortion. My birth mom chose, I'm going to give birth, you know, and go down the path of adoption. So I said I would be so hypocritical to have an abortion because, you know, I was given life, you know, and that's how I justified it from a very young age. I made that belief was created in probably, I don't know, 5th grade or something like that. And so what I kept coming up against was like, I felt trapped because the only path that I would allow myself to explore was having a child, yet that also felt really like constricting for me. And I remember I was at work, I was working at a gym at the time. It was like 4:30 in the morning. I was 7 weeks pregnant. And it was a very, I'll call it spiritual moment where I was like, you know what, Erica, no matter what you choose, I will still love you. No matter what it is, I will be here and I will love you. And that opened up the door to exploring that other path of, well, what would abortion look like? You know, what does that even mean? How does that feel in my body? And to have both choices was very freeing because I also did not want to go down the route of adoption. That did not feel in alignment with me. And so what, you know, exploring abortion opened up was like my belief around death, you know? And I didn't grow up in a family that really spoke about God or spirituality or anything of the sort. And I've developed my own understanding of my connection with the universe and the world. To get death, I've had my own experiences with that. But really, like, what does it mean when another life is at stake, right? And like my bunny Lola, right? Like I got to experience death then, but to really choose, like, nobody else could choose this but myself. And so through meditation, really, and like being in nature, I just realized, like, morality has no place in death. It is or it isn't. We're either alive or we're not. And there's no right or wrong. I think the best choice, right? The next best choice is, well, what's authentic and most truthful for me, and what does it look like to really honor myself? And I had this shift as well occur when I brought in like the energy of like this being that I was carrying, right? Like the soul that I was carrying, and envisioning, well, what would be like my first choice? What would be my number one choice of bringing a life into the world? And I had like, everybody was a yes, and everybody was excited, and there'd be a house and all these things. And it wasn't that, and I knew for myself the guilt that I've worked through of like taking up space in the world as an adoptee. I didn't want my child to come into a world of no's. I wanted my child to be surrounded by yeses and to be surrounded by love off the bat. And that came like that, I guess, shift in perspective, really solidified, all right, I'm going to have an abortion. And that was like one of the first milestones I needed to take on. And the next was, preparing myself and my body for like surgery, essentially, like at the end of the day, like the trauma of that type of surgery and what that would mean for me afterwards. And it was just emotionally a very, very isolating and challenging experience. And for, I would say, 4 months, every day I prayed to die. Every single day. I was like, I have no purpose here anymore, and just take me. Like, I don't know what else to do. And that was probably what we would call like a rock bottom. And I was still loving myself. I just didn't really like understand purpose at that point. I think also hormonally, coming off of that, of my body preparing to like, cultivate a life, and off of that, it was just so depleting. And the hardest part for me was that space, because it's like you can only get yourself out of it. Nobody else could. And I remember I was like sitting in my room one day and was like, all right, Erica, you can either be in this space the rest of your life, or create a way for yourself to like step out of it, create meaning for yourself, because you have the power. You have the power to do that. So how are you going to do that? And that day, like one of my teachers reached out and said, we're hosting this program with women. There's like 30 women in this program. We'd love for you to join us. And I was like, all right, I need to be around women right now. I need to be around that. And so it took me to reach, literally, I did not care about anything at that point, to start cultivating meaning in small ways. And it was through connection with women, and it was through, healing other things that I needed to heal within myself, right? And yeah, what would it look like to like really recreate my life for myself? So that was just incredibly challenging, I think, too, just the isolation of it, not wanting to speak about my experience, yet the taboo, the stigma around it, not knowing, what do my friends think about abortion? Are they, would they still love me? Would they still love and accept me as I am for this choice that I made? And forgiving myself ultimately for that choice. So, yeah.
You said forgiving yourself for that choice. I mean, that's a very profound thing you said.
Yeah.
Can you go deeper into that aspect of that whole scenario?
The forgiveness aspect, or yeah. So it goes back to like my beliefs. I guess I had, beliefs around, for me, that abortion was just not right. Like that would mean not having an opportunity of life, as I related it to like my birth mom's choice, right? That really was exclusively that for me. So like, way, opening that up and weeding it out, right, and seeing like what's a bit more truer for me, you know, where I'm at in my own development, viewing that actually abortion is a really amazing choice to have. You know, it opens up other possibilities, and again, taking morality out of it. It's not wrong, it's just a choice. It's another possibility to step into. And the forgiveness piece, I think, is like, and I'm still forgiving, you know, it's a process. There's so many layers to this journey of forgiveness with this choice, which I imagine like relates to other aspects of forgiveness for me, is the power, you know, like forgiving myself for having this power to choose, you know, that has an impact on others. Forgiving myself for not choosing that calling that I had, that calling to have a child, that calling to explore motherhood at that time, and creating a new narrative of honoring myself in a way that I didn't think I could, right? So like forgiving myself, okay, I didn't necessarily choose that like strong calling of like, Erica, go do it, go have a kid, you know, go have a baby. And I don't even know if I would have, right? Who knows if that pregnancy would have gone through or what would have happened? I don't know. And I recognize that. And forgiving myself for not speaking up, for not sharing my story sooner, and for not reaching out for support. You know, I think I greatly considered the individuals at play in this experience. You know, my previous partner and his requests, my family's requests. I really considered them and like not using my voice at the time, you know, whether it was them not understanding why I wanted to share my story, or, you know, their own fear of me sharing it, things of that nature, and forgiving myself for staying quiet, you know, and not seeking the support that I really desired. And again, ultimately, it comes down to unconditional love and acceptance, and just any choice that we make, we are doing the absolute best that we can in that moment. It's in hindsight that we get to see perhaps other avenues, perhaps other ways of doing it, of playing it out. And in the moment, we're doing the best we can with what we've got.
The next question, thank you for sharing that. The next question, if you can tell us about a truly joyous moment in your life and how that felt.
A truly joyous moment. So recently, actually, my grandfather passed away in February, March, very recently. And I have a big family of 20-something people, and we haven't been together in quite a while due to COVID and life. And everybody flew down to celebrate my grandfather. And we were in the backyard. All of us formed a circle, and we were going around sharing, you know, who Grandpa was for us, you know, what he stood for, you know, and the memories that we will cherish. And I had like this out of body experience seeing everybody in the circle, and we come from so many different backgrounds, and we've all had very different lived experiences and a variety of identities. We're alive in this circle, and to see everybody together in this way of like the most unexpected love, really. It was just so amazing to be with people who support each other, who show up for each other, even if we don't fully know who each other are, right? Like, we're family, and that just stood so powerfully in that space. And the joy and the comfort that I experienced I will never forget that, to be with everybody like that.
What keeps you up at night? Planning and envisioning how I will make an impact in this world. I have really big dreams for what I want, and so many, for me, it comes like energetically, like I feel this resonance in my body, and then
slowly it just manifests in the physical, right? So staying up at night and like honing in on those vibrations and those feelings and like, wow, what is it going to look like? And who am I going to meet? And will I be able to like really create what I want to create? So that totally keeps me up probably every night.
What keeps you going every day?
The faith that it'll work out, the faith that I am supported and that I don't have to have all the answers, and that, that like I will just continue experiencing wonderment and beauty and like humility and the terror, and it'll all just somehow create something that is just, it's meaningful. It'll create something meaningful.
Imagine you're in the hospital today with only hours to live. What would be your regrets, if any?
Spending so much time caring what others think of me.
You're obviously not in the hospital bed. You're alive and well. Do you feel that you can change that regret?
Yeah, absolutely. I think, I can't change the past. I can't get back all those probably hours ruminating of how I cared for others. And now, like stepping into spaces as authentically as I can. And, people are going to think what they think. People are going to walk away with their own story of who I am and their own experience of me. And I know that like I can be at ease and at peace knowing that as long as I was as truthful and authentic as possible, then, what more can I do?
You told me what your dreams were as a kid. What are your dreams now?
So many dreams. I really believe that I'm here to serve the world. Mm-hmm. Whether it's one person, whether it's thousands of people, whether it's anything, anything, just here to serve. And so doing that in a meaningful way for myself and doing that in a way that is meaningful for the individuals that I am able to connect with, that's a dream of mine. And to have a family, I think that's a real gift here, to be able to be in this intimate circle with individuals and supporting one another unconditionally always. It's like, an environment for growth and learning and self-exploration. And I dream of a world where everyone experiences unconditional love and belonging in every space that they enter into, because we all belong just because we're here. There's no other reason why. Just our existence, indicates like you're here, you belong, and create the life that you love.
You're the co-author of your life book. What's your picture perfect ending, if you can envision it?
Picture perfect ending. I would say being surrounded by people that I love, that inspire me, that just embody like, good people. By that I mean like people who live life in a way that is meaningful for them, and that's authentic. And for me to just feel to feel free and just like, Erica, like, this is you, and like no more apologizing for being myself, and just like, knowing that I did it. I came here and did what I wanted to do in every way that I wanted to do it, and I lived out every scene that I wanted to be in, and had every experience that I wanted. And even if that ends tomorrow, you know? Like up until this point, I've done everything that I've wanted to do in a meaningful way. So yeah, really just like going home at night knowing, all right, I could die tonight and be okay.
In a few words, how does that feel?
Peaceful. It's peace.
That's it.
Thank you.
Thank you. Do you have any questions?